If you have never read the Tokyo Ghoul manga, if you have only watched the anime and walked away thinking you understood what this story was, then you have missed something. Something that the anime tried to carry and could not fully hold, because the manga, written and illustrated by Sui Ishida, is not just a story about monsters and hunters and a city that is afraid of the dark. It is one of the most psychologically devastating, visually extraordinary, emotionally precise pieces of storytelling that manga has produced in the last 20 years. And once you read it, once you sit with the actual pages and see what Sui Ishida was really doing, you will understand exactly what you have been missing. So if you do not want to miss it any longer, stay with me, because today we go deep into Tokyo Ghoul, the full story, the art, the truth of what this manga actually is. Before we talk about the story, we need to talk about the art, because Sui Ishida's art style is not just a visual presentation of Tokyo Ghoul, it is half the storytelling. Ishida draws with an intensity that most manga artists never attempt. Heavy, deliberate black ink layered in ways that make every shadow feel like it has weight. His panel compositions are not conventional. He breaks panels apart, overlap, fragments scenes mid-action in ways that force your eye to move through the page the way anxiety moves through a mind. Not cleanly, not in a straight line, but in spirals. His character faces carry an emotional specificity that is almost uncomfortable to look at directly. Pain on a face in a Sui Ishida panel does not look like manga pain. It looks like the specific, personal, and unmistakable expression of someone who is breaking and knows it. And his kaguni designs, the biological weapons that ghouls produce from their bodies, are grotesque and beautiful simultaneously in a way that mirrors the central tension of the entire story. They look like they should not exist. They look like something that should horrify you. And they are the most visually stunning thing on the page every single time they appear. Now, the story. Ken Kaneki is a college student in Tokyo. Quiet, bookish, the kind of person who disappears into a novel the way other people disappear into a crowd. He has one close friend named Hai, a warmth that hides underneath the shyness, and a crush on a girl named Rize Kamishido, who shares his love of reading. Their first day goes well, and then walking home afterward, Rize attacks him because Rize is a ghoul, a being who wears a human face but survives only by eating human flesh. Kaneki should die in that alley. He nearly does, but Rize is killed by a construction accident in the same moment, and the hospital, in an attempt to save Kaneki's life, transplants her organs into him. Here is where the suspense begins, not in the attack, but in the aftermath. Kaneki wakes up in a hospital bed and discovers that human food no longer tastes like food. It tastes like ash and rot and something so wrong that his body rejects it immediately. The only thing that does not taste that way is the one thing that should be impossible, the one thing that should be unthinkable. And that realization, the realization of what he now is, what he now needs, what he can never unbecome, is the first of many moments in Tokyo Ghoul where Sui Ishida takes a knife to the concept of identity and asks quietly, what are you really, when everything you thought defined you has changed? Kaneki finds his way to Onteku, a small coffee shop in the 20th ward of Tokyo run by a ghoul named Yoshimura, who has built a quiet, fragile community of ghouls trying to live without hunting humans. It is here that he meets Toka Kirishima, sharp, fierce, deeply guarded, carrying losses that she refuses to name, and begins the painful, slow process of learning how to exist in the space between two worlds, not fully human, not fully ghoul, belonging entirely to neither. The ghoul world has its own rules, its own politics, its own grief and violence, and the human world has the CCG, the Commission of Counter Ghoul, an organization of investigators trained and armed to hunt ghouls, staffed by people who have their own losses and their own convictions and their own belief that what they are doing is right. And this is where Sui Ishida does something that most dark manga never attempts. He makes both sides human. The ghouls are not monsters. The hunters are not heroes. Everyone in Tokyo Ghoul is a person doing what the world they were born into required them to become. And the tragedy of the story lives in that space. The space between what people are and what the world turned them into. The suspense builds toward the moment that defines Kaneki's story entirely. He's captured by a ghoul named Yakumo Omori, known as Yamori Rona's Jason, a being of extraordinary cruelty who spends days systematically breaking Kaneki in ways that the manga depicts with an unflinching honesty that most stories would not dare. What happens in that basement is not action. It's not a battle in any conventional sense. It's the story of a gentle person being unmade. And the suspense is whether anything survives the unmaking. Whether the Kaneki who went in, the boy who loved books and hid his feelings and believed in the best of people, has anything left when it's over. The resolution arrives in one of the most iconic visual moments in manga history. Kaneki, reaching the absolute limit of what a person can endure, makes a choice. Not to survive, to stop being the person who things happen to. His hair turns white, his eye changes, and something in him that was carefully, painfully suppressed, a power and a will that the gentle version of him had refused to access, comes forward. He doesn't just escape, he becomes something that even Jason was not prepared to face. The resolution of that basement is not a victory, it's a transformation. And every page of Tokyo Ghoul after that moment is the story of what that transformation costs, what it builds, and what it can never give back. Ishida Ishida wrote and drew this story with the conviction of someone who understood that the most frightening monsters in fiction are never the ones who look different from us. They are the ones who look exactly like us and have simply been pushed further than we have ever been pushed. Tokyo Ghoul is the proof of that conviction on every single page. The manga is a masterpiece, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest about things that most stories choose not to see. We will meet in the next video.
ようこそ私のソウルソサエティへ私の霊圧で自戒しろ